Okay, in today's video I want to show you how to make this little ring box. Got a little lid on it and it'll be a wee bit of foam, and for that special occasion ring I shall show you how I make it, really. Probably not how a professional would make it, but the results you get for your finish are just amazing. So I'll show you how I made this one. So keep watching if you want to see more. Okay, so I'm going to show you the wood now that we need. I'm going to go with purple heart for this box, as you see from the first part of this video. And I've started with a round. It was just something my dad had spare, and I'd been asked to make this box for somebody's engagement or potential marriage. So he couldn't use this bit, so I'm just going to use it. I'm going to just take a couple of slices off the edge on the bandsaw and then make it down into approximately 2 by 2, probably just less. So I'll cut that down to that square. This is going to be the wood that I use on either end. I think this is beech, and it's a bit spaltered, so it'll give a nice finish, quite nice and unique. I like a light wood with the purple heart. It really shows it off when it's finished. I have used some darker woods, put burrs with it and that, but it doesn't look as good as when a light wood's with it. But I think it's preference to everybody's own likes, really. To make the lid of the box, I've just got these little brass rods. They're roughly around 1/8 of an inch, 3 mils. So I've got a drill piece for 3 mils as well, just to go through the block of wood, and then the rod will go into that, enabling it to flip open. So this is all the bits that I need. I'm possibly going to use this small bandsaw for the inside cuts, because I'll use 1/4 of an inch to cut all the wood down to size. I could have used 1/2 inch, but I've got 1/4 of an inch in that bandsaw there, so I'll just use that. And then I've not got any new blades for this. I've got an older one which I think is quite sharp, so I'll possibly use it on that one. Or I have another bandsaw behind me. I might put 1/8 of an inch into that, or 1/8 of an inch into this one here. So I'm not quite sure which machines that I'll be using yet, but I'm going to get all set up, and then I'll show you me starting to cut it all. Okay, it's getting down to size now. I'm going to cut these sides off, get it into its block. comes to drawing the design on there. So we'll get to that bit next. That's us cut into just about a 2 block square. It's just slightly, it's 2 blocks that side, but the side view, yeah, 2 inches square. And I just put it on my bench sander and just gave it a little sand off to get rid of any lines from the bandsaw, because I want this bit to be ready once it's all cut to join the side bits. So now's a chance that you make your plan. Right, I'm going to show this as close as I can. This is the bit that the brass pipe's going to go through. So I just made a little circle, as you do, and started with that bit. So I've got the point in the middle ready to put the brass bar in. This then is the lid. I wanted that to be quite thick there because I'm going to put an insert bit in there, which is just basically sanding off so that your nail can catch underneath it. And this will be the box that the ring's going to go into. It's quite small. It's just over an inch really. Yeah, 1.25 inches by 1.5 inches for the ring inside there. And I usually tend to measure it on my own ring. And I know that this particular person's quite small, and it gives a little bit of room if there is a big top to the ring. So I tried to make the bottoms slightly square, ready to put. I've got some foam to put into there to hold the ring. Now, I do everything freehand. Some people might meticulously do precise measurements and sizes. I do, you know, like here, I do it all. I do it all by hand. I'm a bandsaw maker. Everything, all the curves and everything, you do it off what you feel when you're making pieces, and so that just tends to be the way I work. There's not much that's precision with me. It's what it looks like at the end that I'm going for. So I tend to do all my little drawings like this freehand. So I shall now go. I need to start cutting the lid from this, but before I do that, I need to drill down so that the brass pole can go in while the block is square, so that I can get it accurately through. That's me drilled a little hole. You can just about see through it there. Our little brass rod fits through there nicely now, with not too much wobble, because that's what I wanted. I actually used it's a 3mm rod, and I used a 3.5mm drill bit. So I want it to leave it really loose because I don't want the lid to be restricted by that at all. I want it to open nicely. When we eventually put the sides on, that will tighten it up as well, and it makes it a little bit stiffer to open. So I don't I glue the rod to the outside pieces rather than the centre of the lid. So, but that's just the way I do it. You might do it a different way. It might be a better way. When I show these videos, I'm just showing you how I do it. So the next thing now is I'm going to cut can you see that on there? The lid. That's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to cut that completely off. But before I go off and do that, I need to get my sizes on this piece of wood here. Now this piece of wood actually was given to me by the person that I'm making this box for, and that's one of the reasons that I'm using it. And yeah, it's all odd shapes, but it doesn't matter because it's all going to be cut. So really what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to cut one great big chunk off here, and that bit I'll use for the two sides. It'll all be shaped because obviously the ends are rounded, so I shall measure that off. Wouldn't be the first box I'd show you. I have another plan, and I've got everything in place ready for what I would call a starter box. But I was asked to make this box, so I just thought I'd show you how I make it at the same time. There's no plans for this box, that's the thing. It's just made up from my idea. And from stuff you see. I mean, you go onto Etsy or Pinterest and you see stuff, and you know, you replicate it to your own style. I actually seen a box very similar when I was in Australia this year, and that's where I got the idea from. So there you go. I'll see you by the bandsaw now. my fingers get quite close in on this. And I tend to use little bits of wood just to help guide it. You don't want to get your fingers near that blade at all. I don't want to learn a lesson the hard way. So with this design, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to come across the top here and around, and I want to keep the circular motion going, if at all possible. I might end up coming off and then going back in this direction. Always remember, feed in to the blade. You make the front of that blade follow the line, like you're driving a car, and you follow along that track. Don't try and force it in different directions, it's not going to go. You have to feed it in directions. That's how you get a nice smooth cut. I've got a straight bit here, and trying to get round that corner at the end to make that straight would be quite difficult. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there, straight in. That's to separate the lid. So I'll go in and I'll do that bit first, and then you'll see me just carry on around this bit. Okay, so that's the lid, and that will open like that. This bit will need sanded off, because the reason I cut it like that is it needs to round ready for opening, but we can sand all that bits down and then it'll fit into there lovely. That's not an issue. I'm going to go ahead and cut the bottom of this box out now. I'm going to come in a little bit there, I think. Leave a little bit more over on that round. I'm just going to come in about there and then take it round to the square at the bottom, just to leave a little bit more of this angle for it to lie on. It wouldn't make any difference because this is actually attached to the side of the box anyway, but it would just finish nicer, I think, if that bit's on there. So, straighten it up. Right, once again, use this jagged piece of wood just to help me keep the line. bit of the insert out. I'm going to go back and just tidy up my corners now. Like I say, I want this to, it doesn't need to be perfect, but I just want it to be a bit tighter in so that when I put the foam in the bottom it sits a little bit better. Okay, all done. That's the inside of our box. Right, we'll go back over to the table now and we'll get everything ready for the sides. Quite pleased with that. It's finished really quite nice. It'll all be tidied up and sanded off, but it's going to do exactly what I want it to do. Okay, that's our block cut out, which will be used for the sides. The next thing I'm going to do now is, I've got the block of wood here. It's nowhere near square right at this minute, and I need to decide about fitting it onto the end of here. But what I want to go and do first is, just so that I get everything really quite precise, is I'm going to square this block off, and then I'm going to drill the hole in it, so that before I actually cut the outer shape, this is what I do to safeguard any mistakes really, because of any inaccuracies with the wood or anything like that. So I will go away and square the block off now, and then I will drill the hole ready for this. I used this to try and measure it out again, and so I've got a rough spot where it's going to be, and then I shall come back, put this through sitting in this side and outline the shape for cutting it, and then cut that out. When I drill this one, I'm going to drill it all the way through so that it's ready on both sides, and then I'll decide what sizes I'll do the end bits. So I'm going to go away and I'm going to go and drill that now, get the block straight and drill that, and then I'll be back again. That's it drilled through now. I just I tidied up the bits of the box that I needed to, which was basically these sides, and just got them sitting square so that we're ready for cutting this out. This is going to be slightly bigger when I cut it, because I want to have room to, that's it, because I want to have, actually it'll be straight at the back there, but I want to have a little bit of room for rounding it off at the ends. So now that's that bit done, I'm going to cut the sides off. I'm not quite sure what size to go for. Maybe ruler here. I'm thinking maybe about 15 mils. Yeah, about 15 mils at each side, which will take it to about there. And then that'll be plenty. And so what I'm going to do here now is move this back, sorry. Right, put this on here, put that going through that hole there because that's where it's going to be situated. Get it all lined up, and I'm just going to go around the box. So I've got a rough line, and it fits perfect at the back anyway. So I've got a rough line for cut out, because what I think I might do first is I might actually cut this out and then cut slices of about 15 mils, and that'll be ready for my two sides. Okay, moved over to the other bandsaw, and I've got a new 1/8 of an inch blade on here. Just going to check that this table, because this table has had problems in the past with being square, so it's really important with this one that I check all the time. I just use, I don't even know what that's called, but I use this just to check out, to make sure that it's hitting that point and the point at the bottom. Also to check for this direction, I make sure it's coming down the line in the centre. Nice quick test. And then I also use my square rule, just to check that it's nice and straight, which it is. So now we're ready to get on for the next bit. See if that's any better. Fair bit of movement in that bandsaw blade today. Okay, that's that bit. Now I'm going to go to the bandsaw. I should put the measurements on this side, and I'll on the other bandsaw, and I'll take that down to the correct sizes. Slice. Give it a second. Not the ideal way of doing it. No. As I said, none of this has to be exact on. It's all going to be sanded. The sizes they'll vary depending on the sanding and on the look of the finish anyway. Okay, all's gone right. So that should be the end of all the bandsaw cutting. Oh, that bit. Not bad. That's it. Right, so I'll get back and I'll show you where we go next from this. Okay, that's all the bits cut now, and I've put the brass piping through, just to give us an idea of what it's going to look like. So this is it, the shape now. slightly out in fitting wise, but I have to sand these two. That's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the bench sander, sand the two outer bits, get them nice and square, because after the bandsaw's been on them you get a lot of rough and your measurements, you know, they're not tight. I'm not going in for being tight measurements, so I'll go away and sand it now, and then that'll sit nicely up against there. And then the next stage really after this will be gluing up, and that's when it gets all harum scarum. That'll be what it's like. There'll be a little bit of a lip there so that you can stick your nail under it to open it up. But I mean, already you see it's not quite tight up at the back there, but already, you know, it's pretty good fit. Once I sand these bits off, I'll go away to Snow and I'll go away and I'll sand this, sand the two sides, and then I'll come back and show you a bit more about how it's fitting and about the gluing up, because this will be glued up with the wood slightly over, and then it will be all sanded with all of this shut so that I get a really nice tight fit and that it all is smooth at the end. That's basically what I'm looking for. Seem to be slightly off at the back here. I'm not quite happy with that finish, but I'll be able to put the two sides together and sand down. It's all about in your sanding when it comes to making it nice and tight and finishing flush. But as you can see already, it's looking great. Plenty of space in there for a ring now. And once this is rounded off, it won't look quite as big and bulky. Okay, so that's where we are so far. I'll go away and do a little bit of sanding now, see if we can get it fitting a bit better. It's sanded. All I did was sanded the edges square, because I wanted the box to be sitting square ready for glue up, and I'm quite happy with that now. Once this goes in, it sits lovely at the back. It sits slightly proud at the front. It's just that. I probably will have it like that. And sanded off the edges, it's opening lovely now. So that's the basis of the box. Now I'll go away and do the glue up, and then it comes, it's the finishing. All the sanding has to be done at that point, and that's where the box comes into a life of its own really. These bits here, I should have, on the last box that I did, I didn't drill all the way through, I just drilled partially through. So I might put a little design onto the end of these, or a little bit of purple heart, a circle of purple heart, or something like that, just to cover the end bits. Because I shouldn't have really come through, but I did. And these things happen. I don't get worried about stuff like that. I just solve it as it goes along. You know, woodworking's meant to be enjoyable and that. So when I come out into the shed, and I don't normally speak as much, it's only because of the video, but I normally go into my own world and just design and make a box. So, and the finished product's a finished product. It might not be what I started out to do, but as long as it finishes and you're quite happy with it, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm just here to enjoy wood. So I will glue up and sand it up and get it finished, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks at the end. And you know, if you've got any queries about anything, you know, just put it in the comments box. But just remember, I am a non-professional. I'm in a medical profession. That's my profession. This is just a hobby. So try not to be too hard on me. I know there's probably better ways, easier ways, or what, but you know, I'm just here for the hobbyist. That's it sanded, glued and sanded up. Didn't take too long to dry. Kept it nice and flat in the bottom so that it sits. Curved the edges, and I didn't cover those in the end. I just put some glue on and filled it with the sandings. That's the lid opens up now. I just put a little lip on there. I used a Dremel. Actually, I just used a little sander just to put a little lip onto there so that you can stick your fingernail in it and open it up. So that's it done. I'm going to sand seal it now and I don't know whether I will sand seal it. Shall I sand seal it or put oil on it? No, I think I'm going to sand seal it, and then it'll just be a quick light spray of lacquer is probably what I'll use on it, just on the outer, and then I'll get some sponge for the inside, just for the ring to go into. So that's it all done. Hope the tutorial went okay. Any comments, leave them below, and subscribe if you like. There'll be more like this coming up. For now, thanks very much. 1 coat of sand sealer I used, and a really light coating of lacquer. I didn't want a particular shine on it. I just wanted more of a satin finish, really. Delighted with the end of it. See if you find a piece of wood that's just got some bit of character in it. Then it really finishes off a box. Okay, that's the inside. Opens up okay now. Still haven't got the foam in. A little bit for your finger. Nice and tight on. With the type of design of the box, it just ends up tight. I've made one of these before, and it just ends up very tight anyway. And that's what you want, because you don't want to be the ring to be falling out. So that's it all done. Probably, if you've got everything here, about 3 hours work start to finish. You don't have to have any big fancy bandsaws to make it on. All of my bandsaws are all second-handed. I've never had a new bandsaw. I'd love a new one, but they're expensive. They have nothing fancy on them to help me make these curves neither. I personally would love a bandsaw with a guided rail on it that gets my cuts really small, but I, on a 1/8 inch bandsaw blade, could cut round the top of a cigarette. So I think I'm quite happy to go that tight. It took me a long time, took me months and months of practicing to get it that tight. But see, once you get it, no problem. Once you learn about pushing the blade in from the front and using it to steer your way through the wood, you can virtually go around anything. I mean, I've done puzzle boxes, and it's like a jigsaw piece on it, and I've done that all on these old bandsaws with a 3mm blade. The blades, they were quite hard to come across. I think I did get some from Axminster, but I think they wanted to charge me £32 for one blade, and I decided I needed to move elsewhere. Found a company called Tough Saws, and I don't go anywhere else now and wouldn't. It's about £12 it costs me for an 1/8 inch blade, and I can get a great big box made from that one blade. And as you see over in that corner there, I actually keep all my old ones, because if I'm doing just a rough piece of work, I'll pull off an old blade and use that. As long as it doesn't start running off in all different directions, I'm quite happy to use a blunt blade. But for, you know, these boxes, a nice sharp one really helps out. But if all you've got is a blunt one, just try it out. I always do a test piece once I've set my bandsaw up, because getting the tension right is something that you just learn as you go along. And I usually push a piece of wood through it, and if I can get it round, say, the tip of a cigarette, I usually just, you know, 1/8 inch, just twizzle the wood round, and if I get it round okay, the tension on the blade is fine for me. I've no miraculous way of sorting that out. I just tend to know that it's at the right tension. Today I think both of my blades were slightly off. There was a bit of movement in them, so they should have been tighter really. I did tighten one up in the end, and the other one still needs tightening, but it didn't affect my cutting today. But as a rule, I would normally have them a little bit tighter. So that's all from me just now. Like I say, the next box will be the surf box, and I'll be back then. Until then, go away and make something yourself.